The Unity Party can be assured that the CDC will use all legal and political means at its disposal to resist this move to weaponize the country's judicial system to its selfish advantage. Yes, Mr. Guar, the action to politicize justice will be resisted and resisted strongly. The United Party government, in the execution of their civil and evil plan, choose to ignore legal and constitutional reliance, available evidence, and pursue reckless measures. The United Party must be reminded that these antics have only brought about disorder and confusion in Liberia's recent history. The national security laws of the country plainly stipulate the measures that must be taken to safeguard public order. In the post-conflict nation such as ours, it becomes an even more.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the closing argument. Our nation is in peril. Our nation is crying for help. You just listened to the leader of the largest opposition party in the Republic of Liberia, the peace ambassador George Myean, former president, Republic of Liberia, leader of the CDC. According to Front Page Africa, 7 lawmakers were summoned by the police over the Capitol building arson investigation. The Liberia National Police has summoned 7 members of the House of Representatives for questioning in connection with the recent arson attack on our Capitol building. It says the lawmakers are Representatives Jonathan Fonatikofa, Priscilla Cooper, Dixon Sibo, Marvin Cole, Jacob Deby, Frank Saak-Foko, and Abu Kamara. They are expected to appear at the Liberia National Police Headquarters on Friday, which is tomorrow, June 6th. They have been named persons of interest in the ongoing investigation. The police investigation has communicated to the House of Representatives in a formal letter from the Police Inspector General Gregory Coleman. The letter was read during the Thursday's regular section by the Chief Clerk, Mildred Sen. Details surrounding the lawmakers' alleged connection to the incident have not been made public. However, police sources say the move is a part of an investigation to determine the circumstances and possible instigators of the fire that damaged the section of the Capitol building last week, or a couple of weeks ago. Law enforcement authorities have not disclosed whether any of the lawmakers face charges at this time. The Capitol fire, which broke out under suspicious circumstances, have prompted widespread concern over security at the Liberia's most important legislative facility. So this is where we are, and I'm going to read a few comments from Bill Cobley. Let the police be transparent in finding a total resolution of the investigation for this barbaric act by whoever is responsible. James Davis said, ha ha ha. Should government refuse to prosecute those already and supposedly charged and still behind bars and in prison and charged with the crime for the Capitol building? The regime or government risks holding political prisoners, something that for a very long time never heard of, never happened in the Republic of Liberia. Jacob Doe, he goes on. Something is smelly, criminally, corrupt, and extremely dangerous arsenic cartel masquerading as government, whether it is the government behaving as an arsonist of democracy, arsonist of the Constitution, and or arsonist of the rule of law, the arsonist of the rule of even the Supreme Court, as the government proved itself being a criminal cartel and gang in itself. These are some of the comments. Few of the comments read from Front Page Africa. Liberian citizens are chiming in as to what is going on. While we are in, let me get down to Monrovia. Let me talk to our folks at Truth FM 96.1. And I like gentlemen that sent me your text. Keep sending me the text. G2 FM from Greenville, Sano County. That's way out there. Myean, how you doing there, young man?
I'm doing great, and you?
I'm doing very well. Now, you are in the nation's capital. Tell me what is going on. How's the weather? How's everything going with the new rescue government in your little rescue corner?
Okay, for my end here in Pinsville, everything is going on fine. It's just like we have some weather issues because we are in the rainy season, so you expect some weather that is not like usual. So like yesterday we were to come on, but due to bad weather, that's why we went off. So today we are experiencing like a cool weather, but it's not bad like yesterday. So far so good. It is good for my end in Pinsville. I don't know for others who are in different location, but for me in Pinsville, I think it is okay for today. And we hope to see this kind of a weather for tomorrow, where we are going to witness the presence of some representative who were invited by the Liberia National Police on this same Capitol building issue. So we are going to be there to cover this issue there, and we are going to bring the full happenings from that end. And with the issue of Liberians were focused on today at the Arsenal Mental area, where the president officially launched 1.4 billion there, where the construction of or water tank, or where they can wash the money tank. And after that program, the Nima Legislative Caucus came up with a release from Honorable Musa Hassan Bedete, and people gave their view on that. And we also have the president also came out with a release quoting Executive Order number 150 about the rest. And people, Liberian people, are also happy about that. And from that, you can see on the comment section, people are responding positively. And it's not just all about it. People are also saying the president should not just bring food, but rather employ the young people, because we see nowadays the young people, most of them are yearning for job. Like if you put out just a 40 space for job vacancy, you have over 1,000 persons who are going to apply for that seat, and it is very much unbecoming. And people are calling on the government to see how best they can be able to open job vacancy. Like today in Arsenal Mental, the youth gathered themselves together. They told the president that they need the Arsenal Mental folks to double out their effort, even though they are doing some cool work, but they need to double out their effort to see how best they can make the young people to work, because you cannot have a concession area in your county and the young people are still yamming for job, and you cannot see no improvement from the young people. So these are things that have been going on from our young folks back in Nima, where I wrote a story from one of our brother who's impressive of Toma. He's the one who were heading the team from Campley, they entered Sunny Code, and then they went for that program. And they were also there, they headed the protest peacefully, and no noise were there. And we saw security and some government officials applaud them for that protest. And with that, I think so far so good, we can move in.
Excellent, excellent. No matter what you do, you can build bridges, you can build schools, you can build roads. If the people do not have jobs to feed their family, they will not send their children to school. You can build 10-lane highways. If the people don't have a job to buy a car, they will not drive on those roads. It will be only for government officials. So yes, what you just said, if you posted, and this is hypothetical now, he says, if you posted a job, 40 position in Liberia, anywhere, and say you got 40 position open, you will have most likely 1,000 people vying for 40 positions.
Exactly.
That is pathetic. So if people in government are listening, if you have a population, the last time I think we had Dr. Tapper on here, and he said close to around 60% of the population, they're under the age of 30. That's a big number. This is when people are beginning to start their families. They're having children. And if a father cannot afford to feed his or her child, as a father, your integrity and your self-esteem is diminished. You have a child by a lady and you can't even support the child or support the mother. So this is why we are talking about. If 40 positions were posted, you may most likely have about 1,000 people to that 40 position. This is where corruption can come in, who knows you, who you are connected with. And the victim usually in these circumstances are our women, our girls, who have to sometimes degrade themselves, lower themselves just to get a job that they qualify for, sometimes overqualify for, but because of the circumstances, they have to do things to get on the right side of those who are decision makers. But let me read a few more headlines here. I know we got special guests coming in. They said Liberia, close tie between Guar's administration, government officials, and AGL raised concern amid ongoing corruption probe of the company controversial ownership. AGL. AGL is a company that operates ports around in West Africa. Several Meta executive chairman, Meta arrives in Liberia to commission the country's first iron ore concentrator. That's the one you just talked about. But then Turkey dispatches emergency accident team to Rabat International Airport ahead of a high-level delegation to visit. Hopefully they can help us modernize our airport. Then it said the Liberian Senate investigated Lace for allegedly spending over $675,000 on their tour assessment. Liberia is off the hook as President Trump issued travel ban for 12 countries, partial restriction for another 7, including Sierra Leone. Is Liberia dodging a bullet? Liberia overwhelmingly wins and celebrates its seat on the Security Council. And there was controversy there. At the celebration in New York, we had Honorable Senator Dara Dillon. While people are struggling and dying from hunger and starvation in Liberia, the Honorable was showering people with bills, the American greenbacks, spraying it. Instead of taking that money home and giving it to the poor, he was dancing, he was shouting, leading the grand march, and taking a bunch of money and showering it at the people, throwing it in the crowd, and people jumping for it. That's our senator. So, Myean, those are the things that are happening. This is what we're talking about. Now, who do we have today coming on?
We have Mr. Sherry. He's already in studio, so let me try to put him on.
Great. Mr. Ahmed Sharif. The face look familiar,
Ahmed Salif. I go by Salif.
Salif, Ahmed Salif, the face look familiar.
Ahmed Salif. Yes.
Ahmed Salif, the face
looks familiar as well. I'm pretty sure it's familiar. Mr. Jerome Gaiman, I didn't know you were on the closing argument.
That's correct. Ahmed, is an honor to be with you again. For clarity's sake, for full disclosure, he and I shared several panels with focus on Liberia way back then. He was doing some work for our country, doing some a lot of information to help our government, both government, past and present, get on the right footing, leverage our important positions in and outside of the country to benefit our people. So it's an honor being with you again, Mr. Salif. He's frozen?
I think so.
Is he in the studio or he's?
No, he's at his house.
Oh.
Yes, I think it's okay now.
Mr. Salif, where are you? Are you in Liberia?
Wow.
I think he's in.
Do you hear me?
And your internet is cracking in.
Yes, I'm in Liberia. Yes, so I'm not in studio. I'm at home.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like the weather is bad there. We're having problems, but go ahead. We're listening.
Do you hear me okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was saying it's an honor to be here. This is my first time on the closing argument, and so I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to the discussions and the conversation. I'm grateful for the invitation. So yeah, let's do it.
Great, Mr. Salif. For those who don't know you, who is Ahmed Salif?
Where are the other panelists? Where are the other panelists?
They are coming on.
Usually you have.
Oh, they're coming. They're coming. Don't worry. For those who don't know Ahmed, who is Ahmed Salif?
Well, thank you for that question. It's usually one of the most difficult questions is for one to be asked to introduce oneself. Okay. I see.
Go ahead.
Oh, Ahmed Salif is a very sort of multidisciplinary professional who is a Liberian citizen who pays attention. I'm a Liberianist. I'm a Liberian and Liberianist. If you can take that, means that I focus on Liberia in terms of paying attention to what will make our country better. I'm in Liberia usually regularly, contributing to different.
Wow, we are facing some technical problem with our guests. So, Mr. Gaiman.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's facing some internet problem because back home the network is very, very bad. So
okay,
I think it was necessary in coming studio then just yes, because we have some bad network problem in Liberia here.
Okay, well, if he's not too far from the studio, we got 2.5 hours. He can make it to the studio and we can have the conversation. I know he has a lot he wants to share, but yes, the weather back home and the internet connectivity is very rough. Even for the people who are government friendly, it's kind of hard. And when you sit here and I see Myean looking pretty, looking clear, you have a very strong signal there at that station.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's go. Let's delve into other issues about Liberia. I know you talked about. Okay, he's trying to log back on.
So, Mr. Salif, are you getting us?
Yeah, I'm getting you clearly. Sorry, my internet, I think, misbehaved, so I went off. Now I'm back.
Ye-
I see another
Yes,
familiar
yes.
face, Dave Victor Nangbe. Um,
Yep. Mr. Sanvee, how far are you from the studio?
Probably about 7, 8 minutes or about 10 minutes away. I
Is it
understand.
possible? Is it possible for you to go to the studio?
That would be it's possible, but we'll have to. Yeah, it's a drive away, so and that I
Okay. Well,
didn't want to have to drive out tonight. That's why.
if you feel
So let's
comfortable
see.
where you are, let's do it. But you're gonna. It looks like it's gonna fluctuate. You're gonna be going back and forth. If you are okay, we are okay. Can you hear
I
me?
think he's not hearing
Yeah,
us.
I'm hearing you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Victor, welcome.
Hey,
we got
what's
Ahmed
up?
here.
Ahmed, how are you, my man?
Very good, Victor. Good to see you. How are you?
Same here, man. Good to see you. I'm doing well, thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Ahmed, you were in the middle of introducing yourself. I mean, what we try to do here is you are a real person, just like every one of us you were born somewhere, you have family, you got children. Talk to us about it. I mean, not a professional one, but the father,
Absolutely.
the brother, all that. Please.
Absolutely. Yes. I am a father, a husband. I have my children, 3 children, biological and other children that I help raise. Some of them in Minnesota there, some in Liberia and other places. My wife, Venus, she's in Minnesota. And so they probably are watching me. I'm in Liberia now. I've been here for about a month. I am a brother. I am an uncle. I come from 2 large extended family network. You know, the Shirley family. We're from Swan Mecca, Bopulu, very large network of family. And my mother's people are from Grand Cape Mount County. You hear the Nyen, N-Y-E-I, the Nyen. Sometimes they call themselves Fafana, from a place called Garguah District, Makwauma. That's where our ancestors, on my maternal side, settled. So I'm a Western Liberia guy. My traditional home, original came, was in Bapulu, and then we settled in Lower Bomi as well. I was born in Torgbean, partially grew up there, grew up in Logan Town, and I attended school. I went to Botswana Junior High School, and then I went to Sierra Leone, where I finished high school, started Forbe College, University of Forbe College, and then I came to St. Paul, Minnesota. I went to Hamlin University. It's a school in St. Paul. It's a very nice, small liberal arts university. It's called the Harvard of the Midwest, they say. And I had the opportunity to go to school there. Then University of Minnesota, where I got a master's. And I went to the United Nations mandated University for Peace, where I got a master's in public international law. And came back to the U.S. Now I'm trying to finish a dissertation. I've been working on it for a few years, a doctorate in organizational leadership, policy, and development. And so I'm working on that. I don't know what else. Usually it's difficult for one to introduce oneself because there's risk involved. You tend not to say a whole lot. You leave stuff out. At the same time, you don't want to come across as presumptuous or something. But it's an honor to be here tonight. I'm happy to answer specific questions.
Great. Well, the reason I ask is, I'm in a home. I'm the only man in my home. I got 5 with me there. I got my mother-in-law, my wife, and my 3 daughters. So I'm the only guy. So I'm pro women. When you talk about girls, my heart just, so
Yes.
anyone that have girls, I just love talking about my girls, so girls are special to me. So when I see other fathers talking about their daughters.
There are 3 women and
Excellent.
3 women and 2 men in my house. So I have 2 daughters, and my son and myself. Usually we are in the minority.
It's all right. But you did 2 against 3. What's about 5 against 1? So it's all right. Mr. Namwe, here we have Mr. Seti, a professional person. A while back, he talked about how he could help. We all have asked professional Liberians to go home.
Yeah.
All the talking, go home and help. So, Mr. Seti, tell us what is it you're doing at home now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't know if Mr. Namwe can hear you.
I can. I think there's a
Yes.
delay from your end.
Yes. Tell us what is it you do now and what are you doing in Liberia?
Oh, I'm in Liberia. It's it's the beginning of a transition back home gradually. I've been gradually coming home regularly. If you recall, I used to work. I moved home in 2012 and lived and worked here for about 6 years, and then I had to move the family back to the U.S. and I followed them in 2018, and have been there, just helping my kids grow and go to school and things like that. But my heart is in Liberia always. Every year I come, sometimes twice a year. Sometimes I'm invited, in a professional capacity, usually by a government entity to provide some capacity or technical support. And this time around, I chose to come home to be home for a bit longer than I usually would do. So I'm here on multiple missions. I established an organization, the Liberia Governance and Justice Initiative. I'm passionate about rule of law, justice sector reform, public sector reform generally. And so we launched an organization in the U.S. last August, and we're trying to establish a strong presence in Liberia, because while it's a diaspora-based Liberian international NGO, the work is really truly in Liberia. And so I'm talking to partners here to establish that organization here. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm available, as a Liberian professional or someone who is patriotic and loves Liberia, to contribute to what's happening to bring progress to the country, to move the country forward. So I'm consulting to see where I can contribute, where my experience and training might fit, that kind of thing. So I'm having multi-track conversations, and at the same time enjoying spending time with family and friends here.
Great. Let me go to Mr. Namwe. Mr. Namwe, I don't want to sound like this is a family meeting because you're one of ours, but your two questions for Mr. Salif.
Thank you very much. And welcome again. It's good to see you. For full disclosure, as Jerome did, I will also appear on a number of episodes on FOL. I think you are a government expert. I think that's the angle from which you make your input from FOL. Am I mistaken?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what Dennis just they said I'm the governance consultant. Sometimes they call me that. Sometimes.
What do you know? We had him on just yesterday. But let me ask you this: I know you've been in Africa for about a month now, and now we are aware because you did put a couple of stuff in the other chat room, so I'm aware of that. You did say you were also bridging over to Sierra Leone. Have you already gone there, or are you on your way there?
Oh no, yeah, I have. No, I have not gone there yet. I was just. I think we had the West Africa correspondent in the chat room that day. We welcomed him, and I said that I'm on the West Africa beat.
Right.
But I do have a couple of trips to other countries in the region, and I'm looking to go to the Gambia and Sierra Leone, but I haven't done so yet.
So let me ask you this, and I mean, I hope you can. If you can't answer it, that's okay. But you are probably on your way to Sierra Leone, and Sierra Leone got put on the travel ban list yesterday by the Trump administration. Now, I mean, evidently you will be entering Sierra Leone with some kind of document, probably the ECOWAS passport or something like that. Is that going to in any way in any way impose will that pose any complications for you on your return to the States? Do you think there's something you should be concerned about, or really there is no problem there?
No, not at all. I think if I read correctly, the Sierra Leone, I think they have some additional restrictions, but
Yes.
I don't know if they're on the
Not an
grade
absolute
A.
ban. Correct.
Yeah, they're just under additional scrutiny because of something about history of overstaying or
Yeah.
not returning when people, Sierra Leoneans, come on a visiting visa to the U.S. If I read that bulletin correctly. No, I mean, as you know, ECOWAS passports, the holders can freely enter and exit any ECOWAS member state. I think I'm not a Sierra Leonean citizen. I'm an ECOWAS citizen and a
Right.
citizen of Liberia, and so Liberia is now on the sanction list, and not no travel ban list or travel restriction. So I don't believe that I have any legal risk or exposure in that regards, and I do have other protections as well.
Okay. Now, thank you. Let's. I know we'll drill much deeper, but you are in country. You're in Liberia. Your training is in conflict resolution. Attended the UN mandated University on Peace and Conflict Resolution, I believe. Now, even though the situation at the Capitol building has hopefully has blown over, but we're still feeling the reverberations from that incident. I mean, the news came out today that the Liberia National Police is still going to be inviting in the former speaker and a host of other people who were accused of setting the fire to the Capitol building. In your capacity as a conflict resolution expert, if you were to advise the government, I'm not saying you are advising the government, but if you were to be called upon to give suggestion to the government on how to resolve this conflict so that all sides go home happy, what would you say to this government, or maybe to Speaker Kofa or Speaker Kum?
When I look at governance, Victor, I don't look at individuals. I don't give analysis or do research on governance from the perspective of political consideration necessarily. You look at systems, you look at institutions and processes. For instance, rule of law, and you want to make sure that our institutions are strong. In that respect, the Liberian nation state is higher and above all of us, other than the Almighty God. As a citizen of any country, you are subject to that country. That country has an obligation to protect its citizens, and also citizens have responsibility. Citizenship has rights and obligations, just as citizens demand rights from that government to be efficient, to be effective, to provide protection writ large. Citizens also have the responsibility to respect the law, to respect authority, to not engage. And I'm not suggesting that anyone who was invited or is alleged in that they committed any crime. I don't have the evidence for that. I'm just looking at it from the broad system and a sort of national point of view. And no one is above the law in that regard, right? If our institutions are strong enough to be objective in their investigations, and they have probable cause, they have reasons to believe J. Victor Nangbe or Jerome Gaiman or Ahmed Sirleaf individuals of interest. The state apparatus, the state system it can invite any citizen to answer questions. And if they have enough reasons to prosecute someone or to issue an indictment against an individual, that should happen without regards to any political consideration, because then that means our system is working. Our rule of law system is in place, that nobody is above the law. That's how a functioning democracy ought to operate. Not on the basis of sentiments, not on the basis of political consideration in that respect. Now that said, I know that our system could be better. There are, there've been concerns about respect for rule of law, the lack thereof, those kinds of things. And sometimes people don't trust or believe our institutions, based on historical weaknesses. I'm aware of that. But beyond that, like I said, any individual, whether you were a former high-level official, as long as they're not violating your constitutionally protected immunity of a particular office you're holding, no one should be placed above the law. No citizen should issue threats because a government, a responsible government body has invited such and such individual to answer questions to a grave crime. Listen, the Capitol building is the #1 symbol of our nation, of our nation state, of our government. The legislature is the first branch of government. And, fire gutted that thing down. Yeah. I was one who, from the beginning, said, I'm very suspicious. I am leaning towards believing this was intentionally done. This was arson. But of course, I had no evidence. And to this point, no authorities has come to adduce any evidence to that effect. But if they have reason to believe that individuals are associated with that, I think I wouldn't be advising any government to say, this is a conflict, try to resolve it that this way. I would say the institutions should carry out the obligations under the law.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now you're talking about the rule of law. Let's look at, we're going to come back to the fire later on, but let's look at, I like when you said the rule of law. The Supreme Court came down with a ruling in the House saga. And the executive, as you know, supposed to implement or effectuate the rulings from the court. And the executive deliberately decided to do otherwise. You, as Justice Liberia Governance and Justice Initiator CEO, what would you advise the president on this?
You think it's suffering a delay?
Yeah, there's the weather over there is bad. On my end,
yeah, thank you. My internet is still very patchy.
Yes,
and there's a delay. Jeremy, are you hearing me okay?
Yes, we're waiting for you. We're actually waiting on you.
Hello? But I think I got the essence of the question, if you can hear me all right.
Yes. Go ahead, give it a shot. Okay, Mr. Nami.
Yes, sir.
It looks like this thing is not going to work.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the question that we want answered, it goes off. but that as it may be, we saw today, we are now grappling with the headline today in Monrovia. 7 lawmakers summoned by the Liberian police over the Capitol building arson investigation. And it says here, the Liberian National Police has summoned 7 members of the House of Representatives for questioning in connection with the recent arson attack on the Capitol. And folks are saying, we all saw the protests during the last event at the Capitol. And the Capitol, for once, the National Joint Security Apparatus, the police, the immigration, the National Guard or the Army had the place locked down, and they were in possession of the place. No opposition was within sight. And then we found out that there were police, there were everybody in there holding down, protecting the place. And amidst that, fire came from nowhere. So the question is, who were present? Who were in the facilities? Where was the security? On the other hand, the police chief said he believed that there were Molotov cocktails that were thrown with fire. When the fire expert came from Minnesota, they said there were 8 canisters, basically gasoline containers, in the hallway. How is that possible that a day before the fire, police, immigration, everybody was in that building? The night of the building, police were there. So how can you find 8 canisters of gasoline and nobody saw it? Your take on some of the discrepancy, and then having everybody of interest to be from one political party, the opposition. Your take.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking Ahmed that, and I surely understand, him trying to, make his input from the professional point of view, and I understand him walking the chalk line, all of that. But yeah, these are the concerns. You're very right. There was increased security at the Capitol building because there was a protest a day or two prior to this incident. So the security, they increased their awareness. They increased their usual vigilance. So the place was well, guarded and protected. And yet, yes, there were so many canisters of gasoline that were found in the building. When and how did it get there? And then ever since the incident, they're treating a certain group of people as if, they were the accused. How long are you going to hold these people as people of interest? I mean, either you have enough to accuse them of a crime or you're done. But they continue, there's a subtle message in there. They continue to call them in, for questioning the person of interest. Well, what about the people who were charged with the responsibility of providing security to the building? When are they going to question them? What were they doing? Where were they? Either they were very efficient and they were accomplices, or they weren't trained properly and they did not detect people bringing in these canisters and other substances that may have added to complete the picture for the fire. But yet we haven't heard anything being said about these people. Are they going to call any of the security people in for questioning to testify? I don't know if they have. Well, what about these people on this gentleman who was staging a strike. I forgot their names now. It's been a while, but there were, I think, 2 people who were already, in detention. What has happened to this investigation? Where are these people? And so, these are questions, and the picture is not adding up. You know, I hope these people they're calling him, they will lawyer up and bring their legal representation, because I think that they need to be represented so that um, you know uh, they can test this case on his legal on his legal feet, legal stand. Is what they're doing really legal? I mean, you continue to call these people in, people of interest, people of interest, people of interest. I mean, the very day this thing happened, I think the following day, one of the representatives of we all saw the video clips, pick up loads of people, going to his house for a person of interest. So, yeah, I agree with, I think the institutions should be allowed to discharge their responsibilities. But I think what we are all calling for here is, discharge your responsibility impartially across the board. If you're going to bring in, one group of people from the one side of the conflict, then you must also ensure that if there are reasons to believe that the other side also needs to be brought in, or some representation there for questioning, I think you should address that. They have said nothing about it. And then there are all these press conferences and reports that continue to contradict, one another. We all know that prior to this, there was a fire incident at the Capitol building, where I believe the breaker, or whatever it is, there was fire in the breaker system. All of these things here, what part did it play in this incident? There are a lot of issues that haven't been clarified. The only thing that seems to be constant is they keep hauling these guys in for questioning, and they're only people of interest. They're not the accused.
Well, and this is what, when Mr. Salif was talking about the people do not have.
Sorry, Jerome. I meant to say it's in the back. I don't know if you saw the message.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me see. What's the young man? Yes. Let me see. Hopefully, if we can, then we have to reschedule, because he keeps going in and out, in and out, in and out. But when we talk about people having trust in the institution, okay, these are the reasons why people do not have interest or trust in the system, because the justice system that supposed to guard all of us, headed by the Supreme Court, if the enforcer, which is the executive, their job, the Supreme Court cannot enforce her own rulings, cannot implement anything. Their job is to interpret the law. When it's a constitutional issue, they would go ahead and make their decision. It is the executive's prerogative to enforce. So by disregarding the Supreme Court and doing your own thing, now you have become the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Now you decide who's right and who's wrong. Mr. Ahmed, I think, wouldn't you think it would be wise for us to reschedule you, or for you to go into the studio, or you want to give it another shot?
Well, let me give another shot. If it doesn't work, then we can reschedule. But this is an interesting conversation.
Okay, great. We were talking about the rule of law,
right?
Which is something that you have interest in and you have championed. Now we're talking about in a society, especially in the West, in democracy, we have 3 branches of government.
Right.
And while they are co-equal, they intermingle, they coordinate the executive enforces the law, the legislative body makes the law, and the judiciary, the Supreme Court, interprets the law. And whatever the interpretation is, the Supreme Court cannot enforce her own, basically her own decision, the executive. So in this case, a decision was made in the House, and the president, the head of the executive, decided that he was not going. In fact, he didn't accept. The language he used was acknowledge. And that was strange. We have never heard that before. Whether you agree with the Supreme Court or not, you have to accept the decision and then make your dissenting views. But however, he said he acknowledged. And then he said, I will deal with the majority. So you, as a man from the Justice Institute or somebody who is a government expert, what would you, if the president had met with you before going to write a speech or somebody to write, what would you have told the president?
Thank you, Mr. Gilman. The president has many able and competent staff.
That I know. I say I'm putting it on your head. I know he has advisor. If you were advising the president, what would you have told him before he went?
When this, I mean, let's not. I will attempt to answer and address and the way you're carrying this. But I think we're conflating two things. Initially, the discussion was about, okay, so the police has invited certain individuals. Some of them happen to be legislators, a former speaker, and so I wouldn't equate a law enforcement effort with, okay, so there was this conflict and then there was a Supreme Court decision and an administration or a president didn't, in your words, in your expression there, that perhaps didn't follow the rulings of the court according to what you're submitting here. I begin by saying our institutions, when I do analysis around governance and government issues, public sector matters, I like to focus on, objectively focus on institutions, on systems, on processes, laws, transparent, and then principles around good governance. Principles around good governance might include accountability, transparency, participation, and respect for the rule of law. That's true. What you are presenting here in terms of if someone didn't respect, in your view, the Supreme Court's decision, that's problematic for rule of law. However, when the conflict emerged in the legislature, the speaker conflict in the lower house, I said this was a political question. This wasn't necessarily a judicial matter. It didn't appear to me there was a constitutional crisis. And in the end, it really wasn't a constitutional crisis. And so it went to the court. Based on that, there were different legal experts who issued different opinions. Some of them agree with this very position.
Mr. Sanvee, let me push back. When it comes to the Supreme Court, there is no other legal expert, period. Their finding is final.
Well, yeah, but there are matters that can be purely, look, there's a doctrine, there's a political question doctrine. If a matter is not what they call justiciable, if not a matter that should be, it could be easily resolved politically. Legislatures everywhere around the world, people have these crises. Okay, maybe they go and take a vote of no confidence in a particular leader or in a particular party. You have to be able to have the negotiation power, to have the lobbying and persuasive authority to bring your peers on your side. That is a political matter because the legislature is the first branch of government. That is a different branch of government. And then if it became, if you brought it to the court and the court accepted it and there was a ruling and people are still dealing with whether this is a political question or is a legal question, then what you have is divergence of opinion. That's what I saw happening. Okay. And then the government, when I talk to government people, and my observation was they were trying to say, listen, this whole thing, we're hoping they can resolve the dispute. They're not. And we have an administration here. We have a government to run. We have a country to run. We have programs to run for the Liberian people, for the citizens of this country. And we're going to do what we would do to keep the government functional. This is what I was hearing. Now, your position, you're advancing is in doing so, there may have been instances where, it appeared as though this was a flagrant disregard for rule of law, and now they're coming back to try to hold certain people accountable for what happened with the Capitol building. And so I know I'm trying to separate the two and say, let's address something that is a crime, something that was horrendous, that should not have happened, that happened. And there are experts who are forensic experts who fire, experts came here. And there's a law enforcement agency. Yes, it may be under the executive branch of government, and all of that has been politicized. This is a political context. I am not naive to dismiss that. Really, it's a political context, and therefore people are taking it to be purely political. What that does is it undermines our institutions. It undermines the very Supreme Court you're talking about. It undermines the legislative branch of government. It undermines rule of law, these principles of good governance. So my focus is, let's strengthen these institutions. Let's strengthen the public sector institutions that then will deliver effective services to the people, including respecting the Constitution and being constitutional as citizens and as those who are responsible, who may be in authority now. That is what I focus on typically. I usually try to be political and maybe individualize it, or calling him and saying this person did it, this person didn't do that. When we do that, we are dealing with the symptoms of a problem. We're not addressing the fundamental questions around the problem. Because you bring new set of people that just yesterday, recently we were talking about the CDC, various actors in that administration, their government and so forth. So because we were not looking at them as the government of the Republic of Liberia, we reduce it to name calling and individualization.
Oh, Mr. Nangwe.
Hey,
before you come on, let me work on the Chief George I, or Chief George I, or King George the First. Welcome, Chief.
Tomalin, what's up? So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. Let me ask you
good to see you. It's my first time being on with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Mr.
Go ahead, Nangwe.
Yeah, as a guy who pays attention to governance, what happens to governance and all of that. What would be your take on all the furor over the, Liberia winning the non-permanent member seat on the UN Security Council? As a guy who follows governance and governments, what would be your take?
My take is, as a proud Liberian citizen, I am very ecstatic. I am happy for Liberia. I'm one of those who has been celebrating. I'm one of those who, have been supporting our diplomats who were championing this, because it does a number of things for Liberia. This is I think it's Dr. Ehud Dunn, who I've read him and even heard him say many times, a small country with big history. This is a country that has a big history, a history of making history, right? Liberia was there in 1945, San Francisco, the United Nations. Liberia was at the table when these Bretton Woods institutions came online to address post-World War II. When it comes to regional diplomacy and leadership, people came to Liberia to learn about diplomacy, to understand global affairs, to understand geopolitics. They came to Liberia. The Nigerians came to learn from our Liberian diplomats. the Ghanaians, the Sierra Leoneans, they came to Liberia. And then something happened. You know, we went down the abyss. We degenerated to self-destruction, years of conflict, years of division and hatred. Others had to come to our aid. You know, you had ECOMOG, and then you followed by more than 20,000 or 16,000 United Nations peacekeepers in Liberia, and all kinds of other things in between, just to bring civility, restore civility, to bring some semblance of peace to this country. Before you even talk about how to begin rebuilding our institutions, how to begin rebuilding our democracy and stability and healing. Okay, here we've won a seat on the highest diplomatic platform in the world, the United Nations Security Council. For all its flaws, the UN Security Council brings attention to any member on that council. It brings respect to the voice of that member. So then our diplomats around the world, our diplomatic missions will be consulted more. We will be respected. We will be invited to other tables. And we will typically, what people don't know, when you are a member on the Security Council, even a non-permanent member, you actually receive more resources for diplomatic training, for peacekeeping, because the Security Council is, it's a Chapter 7 organ, right? So it's about peace and security. So this will lead to strengthening regional peace and security. It will lead to youth empowerment. It will lead to strengthening our domestic policy on the home front. So it's not enough, of course, to say, look, we've won the seat now, let's go home. No, the work begins now. How do we recruit a multidisciplinary team, people who are skilled in negotiations, people who are skilled in drafting resolutions? Our permanent mission at the UN, you're talking about beefing up, bringing trained people in the international law, in human rights issue, in climate change matters. You talk about, people who are experts in peace and conflict studies, because we will be on the United Nations Security Council floor, advancing debates and arguments and things like that. Will be consulted. Investors will begin to look at Liberia differently, that this country now has credibility yet again. This country, it looks like, has regained its place on the world stage. So I've been hearing people say, this will do nothing for the domestic front, it will not improve education, health, and look, that is coming, in my view, in my humble view, from a place of ignorance, from the place of not being informed, because it will actually improve our healthcare system. It will bring about youth empowerment. It will bring about gender equality and gender support. It will strengthen our domestic national strategic interest from where I sit.
One minute.
Okay.
No, 1 minute. I'm coming back. When we came on, I did do a disclaimer that I have a relationship with you. We've been together. I'm giving you a chance to do a disclaimer that you and the president were at one time at the UN. You were there when he was there. Could you make that disclaimer that you have a relationship so everybody can?
Oh yes, okay. I'll make that disclaimer. I first of all, I am not an official in the Unity Party government. I'm not one of President Barker's officials, former officials, but I've been the president's supporter since 2017. There's no secret about that. I provided strategy in the background during their campaign. They've reached out to me. I went to New York. I supported them at the UN General Assembly. I was in Atlanta when they were doing the trade conference. As a Liberian citizen, as a patriotic individual, you have training and expertise and experience. When the government calls on you, you answer. When a president calls on you, you answer. No one says no to a president unless that person is not patriotic or they don't love their country. I don't care what your political leanings are, right? So yeah, you may have seen me at the UN when they launched this bid for the UN, the non-permanent seat at the Security Council. I was there. I was invited to be there. That's when we launched Liberia Governance and Justice Initiative. So we were there as an observer, as LGJI, but I was also invited in my own capacity as Ahmed Sirleaf, who knows about these things. And I provided expertise, I provided suggestions where I was asked to. So, that's about how much I can say.
And that's beautiful. I know you said that Liberia has regained her stature, her respectability. When you say regain, we were there 1961. So you are telling me since 1961, Liberia lost her stature and just regained it?
No, I'm talking about the hiatus that we had to go through during self-destructive years. I'm talking about the civil war that came in. You know what happened in this country. We're still reeling from that thing. You come to Liberia, you see that the positive steps have been taken every day. The things are moving, the signs of progress, but the country is still very much, dragging, right? Because of what we did to our own country, what we did to one another as a people. And during that time, we were not effective diplomatically. Regionally, we had people were coming to our aid. People were coming, sending peacekeeping mission troops to Liberia, humanitarian missions coming to Liberia. So, of course, during that time, we didn't have our heads high on our shoulders. That's what I meant by that. But Liberia has always been a country that has been respected because of the substantive diplomatic pedigree that it has always had. Historically, if you go back, major historical junctures, Liberia was there. Liberia has been there.
Thank you. Real quick, a cheap plug. I know Ahmed very well. Anybody who wants a consultant, anybody who need knowledgeable person, please hire Mr. Ahmed Sanvee. He's willing and ready. So if President President Boyka, anybody, Sir Joseph, T5, anybody, the Vice President, and you are on, this is my man, and I trust him. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you, Jerome.
But it's all right. Go ahead.
I agree with you. Ahmed is he's pretty insightful, and I respect him a lot. I don't always agree with him, but I respect his analysis. But and I mean, knowing you as I do, I will refuse to believe that you advise this government to go and spend millions to lobby for a seat that they would be unopposed for. I don't think you give them that kind of advice. But let me say this. Many will say that
you need too much credit on that front.
You got invited. The president got your number, but anyway. So let me go to.
Look at that.
I'm getting old before I forget my. Many will say that this winning of this seat here, right? It really is only because of an attempt to blunt out, the sudden rise of Traore in Burkina Faso. Especially that we've been catching flag lately, Liberia, for agreeing to host a defense conference, which I all believe is intended, right, to blunt out the sudden rise of Ibrahim Traore on the continent. What do you say? Is there any substance to this? I mean, yeah, I'll leave it right there. Is there any substance to this speculation?
No, I think I missed a point. So the Traore was trying to have a conference, and what happened?
No. I'm sorry. I tell you, there is a young fellow in Burkina Faso. Yeah, there's a young fellow in Burkina Faso. He's a military guy, of course.
I know. Yeah, I know that young fellow. But
yes, So he's been in the news lately, seemingly, rallying a stand against Western domination of the continent, including the USA, and all of that. Some unflattering comments have been made by some of the leaders, of the West, France, all over the place. So while all this is going on, the news broke that a general in the U.S. Army accused him of using the resources of the country. Right. While all of this is going on, then the news also came out that Liberia had been chosen to host a defense conference, which for all intents and purposes seemed to be an attempt to intimidate Traore and all of this. Exactly. So I'm wondering whether this seat that we failed to win last year, all of a sudden we won it this year, whether you think the two of them are in any way linked.
No, the last year was just when they declared the seat these seats open. They opened them regionally. Africa
Okay.
had 2. Liberia was unopposed. It was not like other countries were in competition with Liberia. You just needed to have a certain number of countries to vote for you, right? That's why we were campaigning the way we did. And so there was no vote taken last year, and that we lost. We did not lose any vote. The vote that were taken this week were the only votes that we have been waiting for. Yeah, look, with the military head of state in Burkina Faso, Mr. Traore, there are all kinds of things out there about him. Some of them are real, some of them are AI generated.
I agree with you. I refuse to believe everything I hear about.
No, everything is the way he's so eloquent when he's speaking English. When some of it has been hyped up, but that's not to say that he's not progressively moving his country and countering these sort of colonial legacies and trying to erase some of them, to the extent that other leaders in the region, democratically elected leaders, like if you look at the Mai of Senegal, they've started renaming squares and streets and trying to erase some of these colonial vestiges. So that, of course, is vexing to the West, is vexing particular to France. And that's something that what Western powers do. If you threaten their national strategic interests, they will come at you. They will undermine you. Sometimes, if you believe in spy novels and things like that, and the allegations of assassinations, attempted assassinations, and so on, even on Traore's life, right? That's what we're seeing on the social media there. Now, I do not know if, I don't have that information. Just to answer that question directly, that Liberia intentionally accepted a rule that undermines what a fellow African is doing in a neighboring country. Of course, Mr. Traore is a military leader. ECOWAS wasn't happy about that. As powerless as ECOWAS is in that regard, in fact, they've left the ECOWAS, or at least threatened to leave ECOWAS completely. Those 3 countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, I believe. And so the leaders in this region are not happy with these military juntas and how they're going about things. Not necessarily that they're opposed to any progress that Traore is making in his country. The citizens seem to love it, because the guy is creating jobs. He seems to be really progressively moving the country in the right direction. At the same time, there are allegations of extrajudicial killings, of intimidation of opposition folks, that no commitment to bring his country back to civilian democratic rule. And that's why the West sells to us, right? And say, listen, military or extra, anything that's extra constitutional is not good for you. Go to elections, vote for somebody. Even if the people love and believe in that particular leader who came to power by military means, they'll say, go to the constitutional route. That's the tension I'm seeing, that tension between dismantling these colonial legacies and trying to direct the country towards the needs of its people, versus the West wanting France, in particular, in this specific case with Burkina Faso, trying to maintain a foothold, a stranglehold on that country. So you can understand where that tension is coming from. And geopolitically, the powers that be will do all and anything they can to look for allies in that region who can help them undermine a particular leader whom they may oppose.
Thank you. Chief, your turn.
Again, yes, it's good to be on the platform with 3 great Liberians who I respect highly, Mr. Nangbe, Mr. Gaiman, and Mr. Salif. Thanks so much. Your presence elevates this platform every day. Mr. Salif, once you appear, once I saw the poster out there, people started to call, people started to inbox, and mostly the critics and all. So I would like to to start with, I know you already made a disclaimer that you support the president and you've been with him. But folks are saying now that you're a professional, very professional person. I've been reading about you so far, and you will turn your blind eye on some of the things that are happening in the country. Right now, President Boakai is being accused of being a divisive president. Like, for instance, Liberia won the seat at the United Nations Security Council on Tuesday. President Boakai, in his speech he made to the nation, he did not even recognize his predecessor, the former president, who, if you listen to his last Sonai message, he laid out where he started from and where he left it. And even in his speech, in his statement he issued, he recognized Boakai for finishing the work. What would you say if you advise him, if you are one of those who are writing a speech for Boakai, a speech he delivered? Would you advise him to recognize the former president?
Look, one thing that I hailed and really admired when this effort was launched last year was how this administration recruited and reached out to prominent Liberians, including former President Weah, including Nobel laureate Lema Bowie, former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. They reached out to these people. They brought some of them to New York even. You know, it was just a very beautiful, patriotic moment that I observed and I witnessed last year. And since then, I've been on the sideline observing our Liberian diplomats, watching them do their magic, traversing across the African continent, because now, mind you, this was a regional bloc thing. And so you have to have the support of all the African heads of state and the African Union and the ECOWAS countries and other countries, so that we could get a vote that we needed to be on the council. That happened. And so, now on this, I don't know. I have not. I didn't follow the president's remarks. The right away. I think I read it or read commentaries about it. But I don't know if that is really truly the case, because, like, from what I've just stated, they've always been reaching out to everybody and even acknowledging the initial efforts that led to this launch last year. The prior administration, President Weah's administration, efforts they made, I've heard them acknowledge that. I've read about those acknowledgements that this is a national effort. This is about Liberia. And so I will encourage this administration and the president has an able team and able team at the foreign policy team at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, led by Our Excellency, our Foreign Minister. I think that part of the work that would need to happen now moving forward is really to be inclusive. And that's how I began this conversation. I said the real work begins now. It began as soon as we won that vote, because it's a responsibility. The celebration should be short-lived, because the work ahead of us includes being inclusive. I talk about multidiscipline, talented team. And also, it's a moment of reconciliation. It's a moment of bringing all Liberians, all hands on deck. So I don't particularly think that this has been a divisive moment. I rather would say that it has been a very patriotic atmosphere. Everybody celebrating. The former president issued a statement. I didn't hear the rendition of it. I read about it. Issue a statement. Other political leaders, I think Mr. Cummings also issued a statement and in support. In fact, prior to the vote, in support of Liberia. And that is what I have seen and observed, right? And other Liberians, I was on FOL and I've been on other platforms, in other chat rooms. Some of us in the diaspora, what I advise, our people in the diaspora, myself included, sometimes we tend to be so critical, so overly critical, that we become dismissive. And I advise, in my real humble opinion, that this is a moment while we all have our rights, constitutional rights to express contrarian views and opposing views, critical views, and hold the government's feet to the fire. But I think as Liberian citizens, for once something like this happens, we should stop and say, oh, thank God, and congratulations, and we're proud that this has happened. And then now hold our government, our leaders accountable to say, what do you do with this now? It's not enough to say, okay, we've won, there's no automaticity. It's not just because now we're on the Security Council, it's not going to bring investors to the country. It's not going to yield us the recognition and the things, all the good things I've been talking about. Those will come if we leverage this and leverage it well. If we have a clear mandate, our diplomats, who will be doing this work, the right people are hired. They have clear mandate, and they pair this with our national domestic policy, our strategic interests. We identify those, and so that we're not pulled by our nose. I think that's where the real work lies. That's where the benefits can be accrued. And that will include all Liberians, including the former president, other, civil society, opposition parties, opposition politicians, and individuals. So I would encourage the government, if they were to ask me and reach out to me to say, look, this is not a moment to say us and them. It's not an us and them kind of situation. This is a Liberia opportunity here to leverage.
Thank you.
One question. Yeah, Mr. Salif, the former president, okay, we can argue about his leadership because a different argument, whatever they want to term it. But when he won the election, most of the folks in the Unity Party rejected him. They said that the president CSA Balls, he's on record by saying he's not my president, which is right to say what he wanted to say. But I witnessed him being magnanimous in his victory. He reached out to the time the then former vice president. He was very respectful to him. He accorded him all due courtesy and respect that was due him during the 6 years. He gave him vehicles and everything. And I happened to be in the room when he conceded the election to President Boyka. I remember that night. In fact, his party and I even made a decision. He made that call. We all were in the room when he made that call to President Boyka to concede the election to him. But honestly, the President Boyka, in his State of the Nation address, I thought it was the beginning where he said that it's time to be inclusive. It's time to unify the country. I'll reach out to my political opponents. He reached out to them. But I think what he said was just to read to the people of Liberia. He has not been forthcoming in it. And this movement that I just left, or that we just had on Tuesday, would have been a moment where you would have seen if our President Myean was asked to support the bid, he did not. If you recently read his speech, he did not refuse. He said he support Liberia bid, but he was just saying if Liberia want to seek this position, we should also think about what happening back home. At the time, he felt that looking at the unconstitutional removal of the speaker and everything was going on, he was just citing what taking place back home. Well, he did not already say, I would not support. He's expressed support towards it. But then you think that he would have been given that recognition or courtesy. But it would have been a good time in our country history after 64 years, where you are seeing President Boyka in the middle, former President Salif, former President Myean, and we all maybe have a watch party to watch. You invited them, so look, you can come and watch Liberia getting elected. And they'll come and watch it. Let the country see us. Call Mr. Cummings, call Mr. Yu, all the opposition leader, Mr. Gongloe, and money, all the guys. Say, look, come, let's win this our country coming back on the world stage. Well, been a great time where we would have sang that national song that in Union Strong, such as the show, we would all have been singing that song, celebrating around the world in the country. But it wasn't so. It was a mix. That was one that brought one. Some people were not happy, some people were happy because we had everything to play into. And now it have been almost more than 72 hours. And I thought the president would have maybe even addressed, they have a press conference and perhaps double down, and perhaps reconsider his statement he made. But the country is divided. And as a result of that, what I would see happening, I'm hearing about protests in June and July. And from what I noticed, I watch on social media, the protest is gaining momentum. And we saw what happened against President Weah government on June 7th when they had a massive protest. And if we're not careful, that I don't want to see it heading. And then again, the government security forces trying to clamp down on these protests or trying to violate their rights, because that's a right to do the protest. I come here, let me end my come here. So now with all of that, I'm saying it comes to the point where the country is drifting. We are getting more divided than ever before. And if we're not careful, this country will be further divided and it may not be a good ending. So, I mean, I want to just hear your take on all what I've just said and where we are as a nation.
Well, thank you for airing your observation there. I'm not privy to everything, some of the nuances you just admitted. You were in the room, President Weah considered and all that. Listen, I first off, I agree with you that this is an opportunity for unification. This is an opportunity for this is a national movement. It's an opportunity for reconciliation to move the country forward. But I also recognize that we are in a political theater, anywhere in a country, in a world, the party that won the election, the party that the people asked to form the government that is now governing, typically they're a little bit over exuberant. There's that sort of the victor's exuberance. And there are stewards who are saying and doing things. Sometimes it's not necessarily a reflection of what the leader might be thinking, right? The point I'm making is it should not be lost on us that this is politics too, okay? President Weah's side, I don't know everything there. I don't know everything on President Barkai's side, but sometimes surrogates, apologists and supporters, stalwarts, different political actors, civil society folks, everybody is engaging in the public discourse, in the political discourse, in a way that will advance their own interest, in a way that on the government side, in a way that will demonstrate what the government is doing to keep moving the country forward, to take steps and strides in directions that will show that they're delivering on their promises. On the opposition side, you agree with me, they will do things that, if not outrightly, overtly undermine to the government, the administration, but to show that perhaps they could be doing better. They're not doing as much, or they're not doing better than we did. When we were there, they criticized us. Now they said they were, I've heard that refrain, right? They said that these people were not, they're the most educated and competent people. They're here now. So we're trying to, they're not all that competent after all, or they're not all that educated after all. So it's just the democracy, the wheels of democracy is turning. Civil, public affairs, public discourses are happening, political discourses are happening. Sometimes democracy is not pleasant. The things that happen can be very brutal. We all know, and you study our philosophy, literature, they tell you. Right? So
let me ask you this.
Mr. Nangwe, let me just finish that thought now. So now I'm not justifying anything. I'm not the one responsible necessarily to say this behavior, that behavior, but I'm just recognizing that these things that we observe and we issue our own observations and opinion about are happening in the context of politics, are happening in the broader context of democratic practices and forces, where people are trying to show that they're better than others and they could do better than the other people, so that citizens can see who is better or worse. It's all jogging for citizens' acceptance or creating a narrative and controlling the narrative in the country. That's what I see in action. But I do agree with you on a larger point that this is the moment for celebration. It's a moment to bring the country together. It's a moment to reach out to everybody. No one is a fool here. This is about Liberia. It's about us Liberians.
Excellent. Before I go to Victor here, my political friend from Grand Bassa County, the late Brumsky, says that Joseph Boakai is a vindictive politician who doesn't forgive. And in the midst of everything that happened, the president have never come on the national scene to say, what is happening here? Let this abuse ourselves of this. This is now who I want to be. The president have remained silent on all of these things. So more people say silent means consent. So this president sits there. Someone just sent this here. It says here, the day after Liberia won the seat on the UN Security Council and the president talking about reconciliation, the next day comes this. That basically the entire opposition is being called in as people of interest. And he says that should the government refuse to persecute those that have already been charged in court and go after all the members of the opposition, Joseph Boakai stands the risk of having political prisoners that have not happened in Liberia in years. Your take?
Listen, my take is I'll go back to the stability of the state, the stability of our institutions, the age-old legal principle of no one, democratic principle of no one being above the law. And those who are charged with the responsibility to lead the people, to lead the country, ought to uphold those principles. Sometimes citizens or certain political actors and supporters of the various blocs may see it differently. The rhetoric will be intense, but the government of the day has a responsibility to be fair, to be just, to respect the rule of law, at the same time, in so doing, uphold the highest standards of democratic principles, including ensuring that that's my internet is slow. Anyone who, if you know, is found to be culpable or the government has enough reason, probable cause to call anyone question, I would say it would be a disservice to the people if they politicize that and compromise and not call such individuals, regardless of what status they hold.
Mr. Sally, well, let me push back on this.
No, I understood.
No.
I understood the question.
1 minute. Let me push back. When the fire took place, the president went on national TV and said they are hooligans. He didn't say the rule of law. He didn't say they're hooligans. And the police began to bring in those that they find to be or they consider to be hooligans. This is what we are talking about. The president have made a pronouncement. No, listen to me. The president didn't say like President Biden said here when the fire happened in California. He said to the nation, stay relaxed. We are going to follow the investigation. Wherever lead us, those people we brought in. On the opposite side, Joseph Boakai said those who did it are hooligans and we'll bring them in. And the police began to bring in an opposition. So how do you juxtapose that and say it would behoove you, they are doing their job? Is it only the opposition that can be suspect here? What happened to the government functionary that were in the building when the fire took place? What happened to them? They are not people of interest?
Mr. Gilman, where a president knows a whole lot that we on the outside don't know. These people have classified information, access to the top intelligence. Listen, you've asked a question. Please allow me. You've asked a question.
What you are saying here now is that he has, don't justify that he has classified.
No, I'm not justifying anything. I'm saying, hold on, please. With all due respect now, I'm not the one. I'm not an apologist for this government. I'm not an official, so I don't have any reason to try to justify anything that is not supposed, to be so. All I'm saying is sometimes we assume things too because we are on the outside. We don't have the information that the principal may have. So if a head of state and president says those who did it are hooligans, they might have some kind of information, some probable reason to believe that is true. We don't know. But of course, then the political discourse will be, oh, okay, this is the wrong approach. This is the wrong way, to pronounce. This is the wrong pronouncement because then you're not giving an investigation a chance. You're assuming that certain people did this and that kind of thing. We've talked about this. We've legislated this, on FOL and other platforms in the past, right? So I've heard that before. So I'm not here to justify anything. I'm just saying, I don't know why the president made that pronouncement. It could be he had information that none of us had. Yet we sat outside and made assumptions that he just, made a statement on a whim. That was a knee-jerk statement. It was divisive and so on. And now the police investigation is following that statement to make sure that it is justified or that somehow that is proved. I don't know. We already and do with it as you may and as you are doing now. I don't know, but I'm saying leaders of nations have access to information that the citizens don't, and therefore sometimes in their anguish and anger when things happen, they express certain emotions, and then we extrapolate from that, we interpret that, and sometimes we're right to do so, sometimes we're just operating based on assumption. That's what I'm saying. I'm not here to justify anything like that, but I do agree with you that an investigation must be given, the appropriate authorities, law enforcement should be given the chance to look at the evidence, to go and investigate, no matter who. I'm not looking at this as opposition or government. I told you in the beginning, when I do government and public sector analysis, I'm not looking at it from the point of view of political necessarily, right? I know it's not devoid of politics, but I'm looking at systems, I'm looking at institutions, I'm looking at principles of good governance, and based on that, and then we can go and look at the details and try to sift through it. That's what I'm trying to do here. You say, okay, those who are there, they're on the government side. Why aren't you going after them? I don't know. We should trust our police. We should trust our law enforcement agencies. Let them do that job. Now, if in the course of doing their job, we have reason to believe that they're biased,
Mr. Nambi, why he goes in and out? We heard today that one Bacchus Carpet was arrested by the government, and it turned out it's alleged that he was arrested, and they just found out that the arrest warrant wasn't signed by a judge, but signed by the clerk. And this is the second time this has happened when they raided the CDC compound, and they apologized for that. So this has now become a habit. Mr. Namba, your take on the carpet thing?
Yeah, I think the judges in Liberia, I think they have the clerks on auto pen or whatever that is. They can sign it. I think I came across that story somewhere, but yeah, I don't know what is happening, Jerome. And Ahmed is back with us, but I mean, I don't know if we just knowing about some of these things because of the social media or whatever it is, but it's just really mind-boggling, the kind of things that are happening in government today. Everybody seems to be doing their own thing. That I mean, there seems to be no attempt to to streamline, to monitor, kind of, nobody seems to be responsible to anybody and for anybody. Everybody seems to be doing their own thing. Yeah, so I can't really offer anything other than the fact that people have gotten used to getting away with pretty much any and everything, and it may not just be this government, but somewhere we got to draw the line. I don't even know the person who signed that CDC office release. I don't know what happened to that clerk. I don't know what I never followed that story, but yeah, you're right. The story came out that the authorization to go and move on a compound there was not signed by a judge, but rather a clerk. And now this. But Ahmed, you're back. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Victor. I've been following. I see you agreeing with me that we need to strengthen our institutions. Once the foundation is, regardless who's there, you want the system to work. That's really has been my point here. That when our democratic systems and institutions are functional and people follow the good principles of democracy and respect the rule of law, this idea that no one is above the law, truly justice should be blind in that respect. The judges should do their job. Somebody's constitutional rights should not be violated, should be respected. Before you arrest someone, you have a proper warrant to execute. So all the law enforcement practices and principles should be upheld. These are the foundational nation-building systems and principles that I preach all the time, and I teach and I train around when I come here and other places. Why do I do that? Because once you have it right, the people come there, they have to conform to what the law is, what the system is, what the institutional practices ought to be. When they deviate from it, we know that they're operating outside the confines of what the law ought to be, and therefore they need to be called back in line. It doesn't matter which political leaning, which political party, which administration. Once you have a good running system, and that's what we see in the U.S. and other places. It's not perfect there. We're seeing all the flaws with this very administration that's there right now. Other countries are following suit, but what I keep telling people is the American system, what makes it strong is that institutions work. Sometimes they experience an aberration. Trump is an aberration. He's someone who has come along, is speaking the language that other people, speaking the minds of other people, things that others can't say openly and freely, saying and doing them. He has the power because the president. However, there are institutional checks that are constraining, him, these extra judicial.
So then let me ask you this. Talking about aberration, let me ask you this. And I agree with you. We must allow the institutions to function. But I think the functionality of the efficiency of the institution is a function of the human character, right? The people who
correct. Well, function of human capacity and human knowledge and competence. Yes,
exactly. So you tell to me about Daniel Sano. He's a deputy minister in the government, all right? He's not even a minister proper, but he has made it his habit to mount the podium and insult the former president of the Republic of Liberia. I'm not talking about the individual. He has referred to the president as a small finger, right? Comparing the president's intellect to that of a mosquito. And not a word has come out of this government, right? And you are a government president, so you tell me, do you think something should have been said to this minister? Do you think something should be said about him? The fact that a deputy minister, and he's done this on several occasions, right? They appealed to the former president to help us, the country, win the UN seat. Then the president made some demand. He came out blistering, insulted the president, how he's not needed and all of that. And I'm just wondering, we're talking about courtesy, respect, and functionality. Do you think Daniel Sano is an aberration that should be reined in, or he's just speaking what for other people that other people are not able to say?
Well, every government, every country, and I like to say the government of the Republic of Liberia we Liberians have the tendency to look at an administration and always say the government of President Barker, the government of President Weah. And we understand the context in which we're saying that. But we're really talking about our country, the government of the Republic of Liberia, and the particular administration and practices that this administration, a particular administration, may be engaging in. Look, there are rules and standards and ethical conduct, that ought to be observed by government officials. That's why you have the code of conduct. That's why you have the Ombuds office now. That's why you have the Anti-Corruption Commission. That's why you have the General Auditing Commission. That's why you have the Internal Audit Agency. You have all these integrity institutions. That's why you have the procurement agency and so on. Why do you have all of these integrity institutions? Is to check conducts, is to check practices, to ensure that people are now operating outside of established and accepted conduct and behavior of a government official, of someone who has responsibility to discharge the budget, to discharge the duties as a particular officer of government. Because why? They're representing us, the Liberian people. They're our leaders. They're the ones who are there now. But it's truly a reflection of us, our society, and who we are. And so, it doesn't matter who is engaging in certain conduct. My expectation is that if someone is operating outside of established and acceptable conduct of an official of a certain level, and there are consequences, okay, there ought to be consequences. And that is not part of such individual's job. In my expectation, in my practice, and what I see as an appropriate way that a government entity operates. And if the public sees that this particular minister is engaging in certain discourse that is unbecoming, perhaps, or that is demeaning, that doesn't meet the standard of a national discourse, there are structures that should address that, and we hope that they will address that.
I agree with you there. Let me move on to something, and thank you very much. Jaron, do I have?
Yeah, 1 minute. Let me go to the King George the First.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Salih, I know I've been reading. I see a lot of positive comments about you from some people that I come to also know and respect to. Yes, I mean, a lot of friends I see Mansfield Duopu, I see Musa Wood, all these guys. A lot of people are saying positive things about you when they posted the poster.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Tonight, I see the red post. So now I'm being informed that President Barker will be making his first reshuffle after the 26th. Okay. One of his confidants told me
of July or
that's July, after July 26th.
That's news to me. That's so you just broke.
When you're in this media business, you get all these small discounts all what they tell you this and everything. But whether it's true, I don't know about that leak. Maybe that leak that coming out. Because somebody asked the question, will there be a reshuffle? When are you doing reshuffle? So but then what I'm hearing, so my question is, based on your expertise, take for let's say tomorrow after maybe during the 26th time, maybe before that, President Barker invites you to his farm in Bomi or somewhere and say, I'm about to do a reshuffle. I want you to help me. Okay. Where do you think you, Mr. Salih, can be put to a position to help this president and the country to in a role as a good governance expert and so forth?
You're asking me personally, where would I tell the president? Oh, put me here.
I'm not saying, but if he asks you to say, actually say, I want you. I'm told that you serve as a de facto advisor to him. So,
Tomalin, in my training, and practice, you do not tell a president.
Oh, you don't tell him. What I just said.
Hold on now.
I'm sure that you are more like a de facto advisor to this president. So if he calls you and say, look, I'm about to do this. You've been following the train. Some started, the rest of the train took over January 2023, 24. You've been following this train. So right now, today we got 1,587 days before the next election. So you just take the second time. So they say, okay, I want you to help me now. Salif, I want you to help me. You are what would you say? You got a lot of experience, okay, in governance. Help me forming the government, something like that.
Move my agenda forward and do. I'll say, Mr. President, I'll say, Mr. President, thank you very much.
Say where you can be put. What can I put you to help this agenda go forward? What will you say?
I would thank the president. I will be it'll be a humbling experience, a moment. And what you tell a president is, Mr. President, here's what I've done before. Here's what I can. This is my background. Where you see me contribute, where I can contribute most to help you. Hold on. And then let me finish it.
When you continue, you got people, your official government watching you. I want to know they are watching.
Oh, right now. And then you're trying to put me in the.
No. Amen.
Amen. Yes.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
We expect you to be honest and fair because but listen, okay, you say this to the president and the president say the water and sewer. Because you say
listen, but you do not tell
you know where you perform better. The minister of state, I would tell you, say I met the minister of state for presidential affairs.
Okay. Exactly. Now Jerome is trying to throw me under the bus. But you do not, no. As a matter of, in my experience, in my practice, you walk the principle to you guide. It's like managing your leader, right? Managing is not a condescending expression. Is really truly helping and supporting that leader to see the picture, to see where the gaps are, to see where you can help them most. Without naming institutions and say, look, make me Minister of State for Presidential Affairs. So if someone said that to me, say, look, this is really.
Well, that Minister of State for President said it would make your camera freeze.
It really drive you that way. You see that you made a thing to you don't say it depending on the relationship, right, and how the principal approaches you with these kinds of conversations. Who else in the room? Who else is involved in the conversation? Before you get to that point, a lot of work has happened. A lot of context is built. So you get there with some kind of briefing memo or paper in your hand, some kind of talking points in your hand that you sort of engage in a productive discussion with the principal, and you lead them. And then you address their concerns, you address their questions in the best way that will help them to make the decision that they want to make. It's not necessarily about naming institutions and say here and there, and people may say, "Oh, man, you have to know what you want and say, this is what I want." There are moments and time for that kind of conversation. But that could also be a disservice to the principal if you just say, "Look, I'm here. This is what I want." Everybody wants a job in this country, and most people are qualified. They have credentials. They're ready. They're Liberian citizens. They are citizens who are ready and available to contribute to their country's development, to contribute to the governance of their country. And so, in order to engage in a productive conversation like that, it's a privilege, first of all, to have that kind of access and confidence and trust. And so the way I approach it will be to provide a principle of information and guidance that will help them to make the decision, that when they make that decision, it's a decision that's acceptable to me, because I want to help them. I want to help them succeed. I want to make sure that his vision for the country, his programs and agenda are moving in the right direction. And that's the kind of roadmap I develop and try to lead a conversation that's productive. Because if you come and say, oh, send me to this other job, that other job, and then that's not productive.
Your camera will freeze. King George, second question.
You got to SWOT analysis, and you got to, you know, your strength, your weakness, you know all this. So you got out of that in mind, so you know where be better. But honestly, from what I've seen and read about you and checking on you, the way how my Papa Grisby is trying to achieve on the way out, trying to retire now, maybe the president should consider you for that job.
You know more than I do.
Ahmed, I'm the first to nominate you. Remember, I'm nominating
your good chief of staff to him.
That's correct. Mr. Ahmed, there's a question lingering in Liberia. There is this two school of thought, right? There is a misnomer when it comes to credential and qualification.
Right.
My part of the world, where I come from, credential is not always qualification. It is the corresponding responsibility to go along with that credential. For instance, a guy with a 3 PhD who have never worked in his life doesn't have the corresponding experience. You take him, make him director, make him minister, and he fails. And you say the educated people have failed us. Then you take a guy with with a first degree, bachelor's degree, with 20 years experience in management and everything, and he doing very well in his capacity. So educate us a little bit. If you were going through the credentialization of people, how do you pair that?
Well, a good practice is, I'll talk about what a good practice is and what are the principles around spotting talents, recruiting talents, and cultivating and growing talents. You ought to be sincere and objective and really want the best and place people in the right places, right? You know, there's this management expert, Jim Collins, who most people used to read MBA schools. I didn't go to MBA school, but I read a book, From Good to Great. He has an analogy. It says that, you know, your organization, your leadership objective, whether you are a president, a CEO, a head of a civil society group, a head of a family, your entity is your bus, you know, like a bus from moving your bus from one destination to next. And Collins says that he has a process where you identify the right passengers that ought to be on the bus and then remove the wrong passengers that are already on the bus. Okay? And then he said it's not enough to identify the right passengers that should get on that bus. It's as important to identify the right seats for each of those passengers. Okay? And then there's a theory around once you have the right passengers in the right seats, who sits in the premium seat and which seat and all that. One school of thought says identify your destination before you do all that. Others say once you have all these people in place, then you can figure out where the bus is heading so it doesn't break down. Why am I bringing this analogy? Is that, you know, you have to want to recruit talents, and recruiting talents include people who have credential, people who have education, people who have knowledge, people who have experience, people who have learning. Sometimes we think they're all the same. And you were speaking to experience. You were speaking to experiential skills and experience, right? Somebody has a first degree. They've been in this field. They've made a career here for 10 years, 20 years. Maybe this one institution, they know it from the ground up, inside out. But then there are also, you know, these laws and policies, these principles of good governance I was talking about. There's a CSA guideline, right, that says there are gradations of different levels, says, okay, you have to have this level of qualification. You have to, if you don't have this and all, okay? Sometimes just political appointment, right? It's the political appointment space that can be tricky, because that is not just purely spotting talents, as is also political. It has other social, cultural factors around it, and obligations into people and all of that. So it's a balancing act for a leader, okay? Because a leader is like this symphony orchestra conductor who has 100 musicians with 100 instruments, and his or her job is to produce the most beautiful music at the end of the day, paying attention to the details of each of those instruments and those musicians, right? What somebody who is playing a viola or violinist or someone who's playing a guitar, all of these things, the leader is coordinating all of that. At the end of the day, they want to make sure that they're producing the most beautiful music for the Liberian people. By that I mean, you don't misplace people who, when you send them here, they will not perform because they're not passionate about our sector. Maybe it's just there because of some other benefits, right? They don't have the training, they don't have the requisite qualification. But you're also raising a point, Jerome. I will finish with this point. In this country, is this credentialization, is this think about title, is a very credential society Liberia is. People will go to any length to present themselves that they've acquired this degree or this title, so that people call them something, okay? Even if they didn't do the work, even if they don't have the training, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the skills, they want to be seen as someone who has acquired a PhD, who is a counselor at law, who is a this, who is a that. That's the society, because we individualize everything, we individuate everything. Our politics, how we see what's considered prestigious, what's considered to be knowledge, what's considered to be power, is all around what kind of title this person has, what kind of credential this person has. Whether they have the knowledge, the expertise, we don't care about that. As a result, it's affecting the country, it's affecting the society writ large.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nambe.
I'm sorry, I was muted there for a minute. No, I'll take a pass. Go ahead, go to Chief. I'll take a pass.
Good. King George, the first.
Yeah, so Mr. Salim, just want to say again, so based on your observation so far, right now you are saying this government that you support. And I know you will be very measured. I know you want to hurt anybody, but what's the area you think that need to be improved now? If you were advising this president, as I said, what area you think that need to be improved in this government that is falling short? And
look, I think there are positive steps.
Mr. Salif, 1 minute. Let you finish. Let you land.
Yeah, I know that. For instance, we know you say have suspended aid to Liberia. Then they were all depending on expecting this MCC grant to come to us. All have been put on pause by President Trump administration. And yesterday, President Trump issued an executive order about suspending 19 countries, with I think about 9 of these countries get partial restrictions, including our own neighboring Sierra Leone. And what they accusing Sierra Leone of, Liberia is not different from it. We got people that come and overstay their visa and everything, and also we have issues. So we don't know, anything can happen. Trump is unpredictable. Who knew today Trump and Musk will be fighting? Today Trump and Musk will be fighting today. We never knew. We thought we had been the best friend, but some of us knew that it would have fallen in the long run. So tomorrow, Trump and Ghana say, you put Liberia on our list too. And it affects us greatly. So if now, what we advise, for instance, what we use it, I mean, how can we, in the absence of use it, there should be some austerity measures taken and bring into effect to cut down waste and abuse and fraud in our government. What we advise that to happen to help us to keep afloat?
But that question, Tomalin, as a public sector practitioner, I assess governance not based on politics, as I said in the beginning, but based on institutions, systems, and service delivery. You will agree with me, President Barker's administration came into office on a wave of high public expectations to the extent someone was saying, look, people should manage their expectations, right? Expectations for accountability, anti-corruption, better roles, connectivity, education, power, electricity, healthcare, and so forth. So to its credit, the administration has taken some early actions. It has emphasized asset declaration, for instance, launch audits, review questionable contracts from past administrations and concessionaires who were, in the country operating. They review some of those. These are important signals and intent, but government is more than intent. It's about implementation. It's about efficient delivery of services to the people. Liberia's public sector still faces long-standing structural challenges. It's not about one administration or one president. Weak civil service capacity, limited fiscal space for investment in the public, for public sector investment, really public investment like capital investment and so on. Poor coordination between ministries, government agencies, weak systems for monitoring performance. I know they've instituted a performance management system, right? But all these things are not new, right? Yet they require bold reforms and consistent follow-ups, okay? So to make real progress for this administration and any administration, particularly the question you're asking me about the President Barker's administration, the administration must institutionalize transparency. I think, empower local government. I know the Ministry of Internal Affairs, now the Ministry of Local Government, because there's a Local Government Act, right? And deliver measurable improvements in basic services to the people. Because these basic services to the people is what creates the positive perception of how the government is doing, how well the government is doing. That means moving from announcements to action, from manual systems to digital ones, from centralization to citizen engagement to decentralization to devolution of power and devolution of resources and so on.
But excuse me, but Mr. Sally, let me interrupt you. I'm talking about some reforms, some austerity measures. I thought we look at the national budget and where you see waste and abuse, see all the kind of money that's being put for stuff, people paying for generator for people buying people cars that cost $40,000 for minister. Just to ride Monrovia, short distances, and then from there they go to Calabash and go to Saville Lounge and have fun. Now, all that I see them do in Liberia. So I thought with all that's happening with usage cuts and the suspension of aid to Liberia, with you still looking at our budget, let's cut some of these things that are happening. But I understand what you're saying, but you're not really looking at the budget where the problem is.
Right. The budget is just a tool, it's the law. It's a law and it comes around every budget cycle. But budget is truly it's just a reflection of what's the revenue envelope, what ability or capacity do we have to generate domestic revenue. That's a big challenge. I know the LRA, Liberia Revenue Authority, they've been really pushing hard to increase that revenue threshold collection, domestic mobilization threshold. I agree with you to an extent that a budget, as they say, is a reflection of a country's priority, a people's priority, a government's priority. But what I hear in our context is that, look, we have very, very tight fiscal space. We have all these binding constraints, they call them. As a result, some of the major shifts that you're talking about are very difficult to make. Look, I was looking at the budget fact sheet just a few days ago. The highest, let me see if I have some of the people. The highest distribution is in public administration. Public administration about almost $100 million, something like that. It's the highest recurring cost expenditure goes just on wage bill, government obligations, things like grants, subsidies, people's salaries, benefits, and so on, just to run the government alone. That takes the highest chunk of it. So there's no serious money for public investment. Things that we're talking about, roads. It's okay. We're trying to make these lateral roads pliable. rainy season roads can be pliable, but it will go bad again. Right now, I commend the certain sectors that are really taking initial early steps to making progress. A lot could be done. You ask your friends, you say, listen, government, when I have conversations, we need to have these roads paved. Okay, we've gone beyond just trying to grade the road and make it pliable. We need to have them paved. Yes, there are some corridors that are being paved right now, and they'll say we don't have the funds to do so. We're trying to raise revenue. We're trying to ask people to invest in Liberia, and so it's a complex exercise that they engaged in. Trying to do things at the same time. The money is not there to do the big things that we're asking them to do. You are asking them to engage in austerity measures. Really, you say, listen, aid is not going to be around anymore. USA has withdrawn, and so all the other multilateral donors have correspondingly taken action. They've now withdrawn 100%. The United Nations Development Program is here. The EU is here. The Swedish Development Agency is here. So are others. But they too, they've adjusted their aid envelope to Liberia. And there are other crises. The geopolitical conflicts are happening around the world. There's climate crisis. All of these things, attention will go away from your country if care is not taken. So, Tomalin, when I hear you ask that question, I'm hearing you say, so what is the responsible strategic measures? What are those measures that our government is taking to ensure that we address these gaps and these aids that are going away from Liberia, so that we really focus internally our development, we focus internally in terms of mobilizing revenue, leveraging our natural resources, and making sure that these concessionaires meet us halfway, so that we have the most out of their engagement with the country, their extraction of our natural resources, so that most of it comes back to Liberia to invest in this public investment we're asking. I don't know if they're not engaging in those. I bet the right officials are thinking and having conversations and planning, and perhaps communication could be better in terms of government communication to citizens, citizen-government interaction, and intro-government communication as well. Because sometimes when communication across the government is not effective, not coordinated, it can seem to the citizen that they're not performing. They're not paying attention. This is not, these are not people who are Myean. These are not people who care about the citizens. So it may be just communication or control of narrative and so on. So
thank
you.
Go ahead. 1 minute. Yeah, go ahead, Len. He didn't finish. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ahmed. Mr. Sadiq, go ahead.
I was just about to end by saying, as you can see, listen, it's a non-answer to attempting to answer, right? But as you can see, I'm trying to lay a complex premise that tells you that it's a complicated exercise. Governance is a complicated exercise, but at the same time, that does not absolve the government of the responsibility to communicate effectively to and with the citizen as to what they're doing, why they're doing, what they're not doing, why they aren't doing this and that, what are the priorities and things like that.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thursday edition of The Closing Argument. Today we have our guest, Mr. Ahmed Salif, Liberia Governance and Justice Initiative CEO. His expertise is in governance, the overall, not particularly a particular area, but he looks at substances on the holistic level, and he advises government. Before Ahmed, Siddiqui, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great. Now, before I go to Ahmed here, there was an Afrobarometer survey that was just done. The president won this election by 51.2% of the votes. Okay, so the barometer says 50% of the country says the country is moving forward. 50% say the country is retrogressing. So that tells me that the president lost 1.2% of his vote now, that all things being equal. If he had kept everything, we would say 51.2% of people should have said the country is moving forward. Those are his supporters. And then those who don't support him should be around 48, 49%. So the country is evenly divided against country being retrogressed and country moving forward. That means the president is losing ground. So to you as an advisor to the president, how
I am not.
I'm giving you the crown. I'm giving you the crown as an advisor to the president.
Right.
How will you address that at this point? We're talking about a year and a half. Like you said, as a sociologist, I would say they overpromise and underperform. What were you talking about?
You know, listen, after an election, right? I was saying the expectation, you're riding this high wave. There was another administration, depending on how they performed or what was the perception, people elected this new president. And you know, and so they expect that you will deliver on this, deliver all kinds of things. So there's that honeymoon period, right? That the president enjoyed popularity and his programs. You know, people are very optimistic, and after a certain time, in any context, really, once you start to implement development and programs, substantive programs. Sometimes it takes time for the sort of bread and butter issues, the social policy prescriptions and dividends and benefits on those, you know, like social safety nets, things that put food on people's tables, things that help people to send their kids to school, to receive the highest quality health care, those kinds of effective services that citizens feel and they impact right away. That's where you can begin to see society grumbling, so to speak. You begin to see an administration losing some level of support, at least in public opinion or in the public discourse. So I'm not surprised by that number. To me, that's marginal, really, because on the margin, you know, statistically, you'll see fluctuation up and down based on how they're doing. For example, as an illustration of how painful development can be, right? The building roads, they have to demolish certain structures along the roads, you know, including sometimes markets, sometimes things that impact people's livelihoods. The water and sewer sector, they're trying to bring water back in this, you know, central Monrovia and modernize the infrastructure, the water and sewage infrastructure. They have to remove certain structures that have been built over lines, and people are impacted. People's livelihoods are impacted by these things. So you expect that there will be some fracture in support level, even in perception level of the president's performance. Now, Afrobarometer is a perception-based survey, and so it is doing just its job. Thank you.
Talking about water, the people will be really upset when you build a water and they turn it on, the water doesn't come out, and you say water there. Mr. Fofana, your take. Your question to Honorable Salif.
Yeah, Mr. Salif, good to have you on the show. I listened to most of the presentation in between there. I listened. I think you provide a very optimistic and to a larger extent an objective analysis of what is unfolding in the country. And so I just want to commend you on that. I'm just concerned about the many things you have said. I'm just concerned about this thing that I've always heard, not just with this government, but government before, and I'm sure government to come, on the issue of job creation. It's one of those rhetoric, one of the campaign thing that always got job creation. And oftentimes we really don't see it. And so, I mean, as I asked my one or two questions, but the first is, what actually is the go-to area? Realistically, the go-to area beyond the political rhetorics, beyond the...
Can we all mute somebody? Something is talking about.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm on other phone. You know, I got.
Okay, sorry about that.
Multitasking. I'm multitasking. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
good question.
So basically, I just want us I mean, I got one or two questions, but I want that to be the first. Then I'll go.
Yeah,
to
it's an excellent question.
But the first one is, what is the practical approach, not those rhetoric and stuff, practical approach that we can create jobs? Because that's something every politician, every campaign, everything, it becomes a soundbite. Job creation, job creation. But there isn't any. So I don't know what I don't think it is the lack of will, perhaps it's the lack of knowledge as to how we can create job, considering the skill set in a country. Literate, semi-literate, and then of course maybe the few educated, but a vast majority of the young population, of course, they will be considered either literate or semi-literate.
Thank you, Mr. Fofana. That is a very important question. And sometimes even the politicians during their campaign periods, they come at it with some level of misunderstanding. Because the position the society to believe that government is the one that provides jobs, that is government's responsibility to create jobs. Government don't create jobs around the world anywhere. What governments do, they facilitate job creations. You know, for example, you hear people use this macroeconomic terms, or create the enabling environment for private sector job creation. And you are asking for specific examples and what are the practical ways to do that, you know? So for instance, government could, one thing I've seen they're doing, they have this thing called, now it's a new agency, Liberia Special Economic Zones Authority. And this is a practice that other countries have used. China has used this to grow. Countries like Indonesia, countries like Tanzania, Ethiopia, in the African region, they've started adopting this, whereby you demarcate a particular physical zone. Say, for instance, this is an agro-processing zone. So any businesses or investors who come to operate in this zone, we give them tax waivers. There are policy regime that help them to make it easy for them to do business. You give them subsidies sometimes just to attract investors to come, and you show them that their investment is protected. By doing so, you're creating job opportunities for your citizens. You could do that with technology. You could do that with agriculture. You could do that even with power and energy, right? Electricity is another area, practical area that government can actually take action to create jobs that has this sort of domino effect of job creation. So no country historically has modernized, has industrialized, has taken off without sustainable, affordable electricity and consistent electricity, all kinds of power sources, for example, because that's how you mechanize the agricultural sector, which leads to a whole value chain of job creations, people who are growing crops, people who are providing implements, agricultural inputs, people who are providing, the maybe processing of the agriculture crops that you're harvesting. There may be storage, there may be transportation, getting to market, value addition. That's a whole line of job creation, just the agri sector alone. If you do what they call light manufacturing, for instance, maybe people coming in to do clothing, these garment industries that Mexico and other countries in Asia engage in, that's another way of creating jobs. But all of that, as you can see, is not directly government jobs or government that's creating the job. The government is creating the sort of tax environment, the policy flexibility to allow those kinds of activities to happen, to allow electricity to flourish, to be generated, be transmitted, be distributed properly and marketed. Okay. And then you can look at, say, the youth sector, right? The young people, you touch on education and training. What governments do is they can subsidize or directly fund skills training activities. This thing called TVET, or technical vocational education. You want to train young people. Those who don't see a career in an academic path, create a path for them whereby they can train, whether they're truck drivers, whether they are, those who are working on farms, whether those that are working in light manufacturing facilities or something like that, in an agriculture plant that they can do something to earn income to take care of their families. These are the activities, the complex but doable activities that a government could do to enable the private sector environment, the ease of business, doing business environment, to remove constraints and assure investors that their investments will be protected. Talking about security. You're talking about security and rule of law. What does that mean? You're talking about the courts, judges, right? That when there's a dispute, because there will be dispute, contract disputes, concessions or agreements and things are negotiated, investors come and put their money in your country. At the end of the day, you treat them fairly, because what they're doing, your government is telling them, regulating them, the labor sector, they're giving them work permit, you're giving them licenses to operate in your country. Government is enabling the environment to create jobs so citizens can be well off. At the same time, government ought to be responsible and demonstrating that those it invites to come to do business in our country, those people's interests will be protected, just like the country's interests should be protected. So I say this to say that there are many possible ways, practical ways that government could devise policy and systems that lead to job creation that we can actually see and feel, not just talk about it in policy terms, in economic terms. Mr. Fubana, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, of course it makes sense. So you have like key very important points, which I think if you critically apply those with our country now and for a very long time, you realize that we have not been effective when to those areas, particularly on the issue of rule of law and all of that. However, we want to move forward and look to the future, and to do that, we want to look at the present moment. Today, the president of Liberia dedicated a $1.4 billion concession project in Nema County. It has been estimated, a Roman report, that it's going to create 6 million jobs. It comes 4 months before the MDA of metal is renewed and reviewed. There is, however, concerns now being raised, a clash between the Nema caucus and perhaps the government own approach in that direction. Among many of the allegations there, the caucus is concerned that Metal have not been able to live up to many of its commitments, from road rehabilitation or preparation to perhaps job creation. We do not know how much more concession years and stuff we're going to give Metal. We got Firestone on the one hand that have been there for 99 years. We got APM Terminal on the other hand. That's there too, and our people crying. We're about to review Metal in the next few months from now. There's a different approach or view of Metal's work in Nema from that of the lawmaker and perhaps the executive branch. What would you advise in that direction when it comes to not just best practice, but ultimate interest for the Liberian people? Using perhaps our experience from Firestone, our experience from the APM terminal deal, and other one, the one in Cape Mount and stuff like that. What could you advise now that as we approach to this review or the reconciliation agreement negotiation?
Yeah, you make a good point about how, and I think somewhere during this discussion, I sort of alluded to how we could leverage and really get the most out of these concession agreements, because literally raw materials are being extracted from our country and shipped on vessels away. And maybe the rent we collect, we see it, we say, oh, this is a lot of money that's coming to the government. And perhaps it's not, because these raw materials are not, there's no value addition in country. There's no skills transfer by and large, aside from the largely manual labor that are happening on site, maybe some logistical support there. But when it comes to, the ratio of rent received from the kind of high quality a natural resource has been extracted from the country, leaving our shores, our government, our leaders have to, revisit these approaches and perhaps go on study tours, perhaps engage, technical experts who know these things, One time, I will tell you without naming name, I was in a conversation during President Sirleaf's administration with a minister who was responsible for knowing the quantity of oat that is shipped out of the country, for example, right? And this was a junior minister, and this person said to me, the actual truth is, we do not even know, because the Buchanan port, the large vessels don't come to berth there to collect the oil, for instance, right? So they have these smaller vessels that, or at least some vessels that transport the oil to the bigger vessel at sea, and those that are contracted to come to measure. I don't have the expertise or qualification in that to discuss that. But what I took away from that conversation was our government could not even tell for certain how much iron ore exactly was leaving Liberia. And so that was troubling to me. That was a big revelation to me. And I said, then it means we are miscalculating how much rent we should be receiving from, if we can't calculate. We do not know the exact quantity. That's problematic. Again, it could be my ignorance, just because that's not my background. I don't have any training or experience or expertise in that respect. But that's an example of why we should engage the right experts and people who have experience in these things to help us renegotiate some of these concessions, because we could develop our country from exploiting our mountains and having people come here and extract our ores. Maybe we want them to process everything here in Liberia. We force them to come here to bring their plants, whatever they do in Europe and other places, to finish these products and put chips and stuff in our computers and our phones and whatnot. We bring them to Liberia, or to build the skyscrapers in New York, Minneapolis, and other places. These are iron ores that are leaving the shores. Our robots, people are rolling on them in those cities that we in the US. Yourself, your vehicle might be on a Firestone, rolling on Firestone wheels, right? But these are not manufactured in Liberia. And so we're losing a whole lot that could be helping to create jobs, not only create jobs, but really develop this country and put a country in a different league. So again, just because it's not my background, I don't have authority in that, but I suspect that there's a lot that we could be doing to benefit more from what these investments these concessionaires are doing. The final point I will make is a political one. The legislature has to approve. There are all kinds of things that are juggling happening between the executive and the legislative branches, and then these county development funds that are coming, or social development funds from these concessionaires. As a result, people usually fight over those. At the county level, at the national level, between the legislature and the executive, there are these tension around just that money. Again, that's my point. It's a misunderstanding. If that little amount of money, that's where the tension is, it means that our focus is on the wrong place. Because if we're leveraging really and receiving the appropriate rent and resources that should come to the country, we will not be fighting over what a social development fund is and how much is going to which county, because the resources that have been extracted are in this county and not this other county. So that, I think that's a national conversation our leaders should engage in, and some of us are willing to to just back them and support them to really change the trajectory of this country. We can't keep dragging. It's not magic. I tell people, it's not magic that you see countries like, you know, the United Arab Emirates, countries, these Emirates that have nothing in the ground, but they're just growing. They're some of the most beautiful places you go to. Why? They tell you to grow is leadership, is innovation, is thinking about the future, and then leveraging what you have, what influence you have, what little resources you have to build your country. It's love for country, not love for self.
Thank you.
Can
We have,
okay now.
What?
I should continue.
Yeah, well, we got 10 minutes, and we have our guests have to go. But if you can make it quick, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would just make this one brief, and it has to do with human resource management. I wouldn't want to call it perhaps corruption yet, even though it's in the audit report. However, your own advice that you could give to them. The Deputy Minister of Administration at the Ministry of State respond to an audit report that says that she maintained or recruited new people in positions that they consider personal, perhaps cooks, drivers, security, of people that they could not fire from the old administration as per CSA standards, but they wanted new people to serve in that term in terms of comfort, in terms of security, and all of those things. And so they hired the same group of people, but on something like the supplementary payroll. We're not too sure whether that is reflected in a budget, but I mean, what does that say? Does it, beyond the issue of corruption, does it speak to competence as well?
Well, I wouldn't speak to a specific individual or ministry, but I'm aware as a development practitioner, when I worked in the development space of a major donor country, and we were closely working with the government of Liberia during the President Sirleaf time at the time. Supplementary payroll was a big issue. For instance, the education ministry, for instance, that people have multiple different kinds of payrolls for teachers, for this, for nurses, you know, and then some of them, they largely had to do with this supplementary payroll issue. So I don't know if it's not reflected in the budget, but I know that it's captured somewhere because they use it as a tool, like quick impact employment and that sort of thing. So people don't go through the CSA process, for instance. It's not necessarily illegal, but to me, the larger question around it when I think about it is this job creation concept, this idea that government got to create job and apportion jobs to people, and you know, these promises that are made during campaigns, and the pressure that these officials are under as well, right? I mean, because you owe a lot of people, and some of these people are qualified, they're competent, they're available, maybe they're not so competent, but there's pressure to hire folks and accommodate folks. So sometimes they use those tools, those supplemental payroll, as an instrument to accommodate and hire staff in various ministries, not just the Ministry of State. Like I said, this is the major problem with education, the education sector. Some of these big ministries, internal affairs, education, health, that have few staff all around the country, that kind of thing. So it's a matter of sort of public administration practice question, whether or not is serving the purpose that's supposed to serve, and whether it should be revisited. That's left with the government of our country and those who have the authority to make those decisions, because they're privy to the circumstances and the reasons and how these tools have been deployed.
Thank you very much. I think we are at the end of it's getting late in Liberia. Mr. Saliva, thank you very much for coming on, and we hope that you come back and let's have some more conversation about your parting comments. What is
Thank you.
Whoever
I've been waiting as he's making his parting comments. I know you had to go from Ahmed to Hamed, and you left me out of the loop.
Well, then you need to put an H in your name.
I'm trying to work on that. Ahmed, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. Like you always do, you deliver tonight. Thank you also for making time. Let me ask you as you're closing, all right? And I know you're sidestepping all the landmines, and I get it. You know, you're the ultimate professional. You're just keeping, walking the chalk line. But tell me that one thing that you will grade if you were to grade this government that you would say it has. And I'm not saying flawlessly, but that it has executed and done so efficiently. That one thing done right by this government. I'm not looking for perfection, but just done really right. So you can please add that in your closing comment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I've really enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad the internet stabilized and we were able to engage. I may not have gotten everything right. And so that's part of the nature of these kinds of engagements. I wish it had been more interactive. We call in and reading comments from folks who are listening, who are following. And that way, it's a good way to gauge how well we're doing on the show ourselves and how people are holding us accountable. But I'm grateful for those who have listened, followed, have commented, and those who will listen later and follow. And to all of you, the panelists here tonight, the questions you've brought forth, to me, it demonstrates that we all love our country. We care about Liberia. That's why I'm up late this midnight here now, almost, that I'm here and engaging in this in the public square, in the public discourse. And you are there, you're taking time, you always do, to engage in these conversations. It's because of love for country. And what I tell folks in Liberia here, I have a set of things that I tell people like you in the diaspora who come on these panels and so critical sometimes. And I say, look, it would take Liberians at home and Liberians abroad in the diaspora to come together to make Liberia better, to build this country. No one set of Liberians has it all. It would take the best brains of Liberians, the best well-meaning, ethical Liberians to come together at home and abroad. Because at home we have competent, qualified, consummate professionals. Yes, it's not perfect. There are a lot of things that could be better. So too in the diaspora, we have competent, consummate professionals who are willing to contribute, who love their country. Until we can adopt that kind of mindset and begin to cultivate, how to institutionalize that kind of mindset, we'll continue to have challenges. So part of my broader appeal when I do these things is really to bridge and build bridges and encourage cross dialogues between diaspora and those at home, which is why I'm up late doing this. Victor, to your question, the one thing, I mentioned in the beginning that there are early steps in some sectors that is administration engaged in, even in the rule of law space, with the thing with the War Economic Crimes Code, making at least Office of War Economic Crimes, with the thing with the some of these audits and anti-corruption efforts. Some of them were, led to missteps and they've gone back to the drawing board. Asset declaration, there was some delay. The president made strides there. Asset recovery, there was a challenge there. I understand the retooling. So you could tell that those were signals that, they were moving towards integrity, they were moving towards accountability and transparency. And as I said in the beginning, those are all principles of good governance. And that's what you want, that's what you look for. But you have to move from pronouncements to action, to actual implementation. That's what citizens are looking for. That's what experts and professionals, that's how we measure performance and delivery and hold the government accountable. There are some sectors that I think the electricity thing, I've been talking about since I've been here, I've been on different programs. The electricity is stable. It's since I've been here, you go buy a token, you don't have current, that means you don't have money or you don't want to. And I've seen they have street lights and pedestrians are respecting the street lights. Motorists are respecting pedestrian crossing. My brother and I are driving around, but it's amazing. It's like our people are being conditioned, they're coming around to learning these things, they're obeying these things all around in Pinsville, throughout Congo Town, through the city, street lights at night. But those are good steps. What I've said to officials and to people that I've had conversation with is, how do we make it sustainable and consistent and institutionalize it from generation of electricity to the transmission, distribution, and marketing, and the affordability of it. That's what we have to focus on. We should relax and say, now it looks like LEC is stable for the most part, and the problem solved. Problem is not solved. So that's one sector I think they're really forging ahead. The other sector is roads. I come sort of harsh on them and say, look, we need to pave the roads. We need to be ambitious. We can't just say we'll open and make them pliable. We're beyond that. And I say, so we don't have the money, we'll get there. But I think they're making effort. You go around the urban areas, you go outside the cities, and I've done a little bit of that. And then you talk to people who are traveling around the country. They're opening up the country. They're opening up from corridor to corridor, not paved yet. Some of them just lateral roads, and there are some corridors that have been paved and they're working on. You are aware of some of those. But I'm seeing real, genuine, sincere efforts in the road sector, in the power sector, in the water and sewage sector. Of course, there are a lot of missteps and things could be better and improved, but those have been my observations so far. And some of what you say, what are they doing really well? I think that there are some general things that they're handling. They have a good handle of. Of course, everything is urgent. Everything is a priority in this country just because of what we have to deal with. It's a complex environment to govern and to run a government. So I want to thank you all and say, let's do it again. Let's find time and have these kinds of conversations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
King George.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salif. It was a privilege and to have you on our platform today. We appreciate you so much, and we look forward to engaging you again. And I pray and hope that when the president do a reshuffle after the 26th, the new amnesty everywhere will be emerge. And
you'll be the first I will call.
Let go bring John Malu first. Then we'll let him.
Oh, John Malu should be the head of Dodge, LeBron of Dodge.
That's right.
Yeah.
But thank
all
you
right,
so much, man. You did much better than what the guys on the closing argument have been trying to do forever, to spin what's happening in the country. As much as we don't fully agree with all of the presentation you made, but it comes from a point where it resembles some honest, professional presentation as opposed to propaganda. I think they need to learn from you.
Wait, did you say the closing argument or you next?
I'm not in the propaganda business. I'm for country. I'm not I can even tell my friends.
You keep on here, you hear the government case to some extent. I mean, you are able to, I think that's what we need to continue to do, have these conversations around. But it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. I really enjoyed this. Is my first time on the closing argument, and I think it was a robust, well-rounded. You try to push me in some direction. That's your job, and I hope I hope I try my best to provide to the best of my ability assessment and analysis. So thank you. Have a good night from the capital city of our beloved country. Have a pleasant night.
Thank you. Okay, guys, we got a few minutes to do our own assessment, our own analysis. King George.
Well, look, it's always good to engage professionals, especially when they come about the good of our country. And one thing I'm happy, and people are so happy that having you, Mr. Nyenwolo, sometimes you just got to pray for the best. And today, people, before they come on the platform, when the guy came first, they said, what other people? apparently leave from somewhere. Everybody coming, but it's always good to have the engagement, man.
My hair. I gotta buy a thing. I buy a thing.
Hey, talking like, but it's always good to have this kind of engagement.
Where do people, where they come from?
No, my yeah. Go ahead.
Siliki, tell me what you know. Next week, I'm gonna be taking 50 minutes and dedicate that to the schools in Liberia, right?
No, but Mr. Gimel, the problem I've been raising, the dialysis issue in the dialysis machine.
Listen.
And people have been coming to reaching out. They said people were trying to care relative to Sierra Leone just recently. I think the machine is back up and running, but I know a person that I think we're the first person that even did that dedication, right?
That's correct.
In our CDC did it.
That's correct.
The government did that thing, right? The dialysis machine.
Correct. I think
you need to invite citizen former information minister, or you want to be playing that role.
Oh, I'm playing that role. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because when I come to show you, don't be asking me about it.
You chairman.
Yeah, but the point is, if you want to discuss citizen government,
look, whatever dialysis machine, and I know citizen government want to follow that machine.
You invite a former information, or you can come as a guest in our direction, then we can ask you the question.
Oh, no. So you don't know anything about it.
We're interviewing. It been work out.
It's a serious stuff.
That is an issue though, and everybody complaining, and because people are suffering with diabetes in our country is rate is so high, and everybody. And imagine you look, people that in America, some people go 3 times a week. Monday, some people go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 3 hours. They spend at the hospital. We found their blood. In Liberia, the people online. I mean,
the lady said 3 of her partners, 3 of the people just died in the car waiting. 3.
So we need to bring on some nurses here, some doctors to come and tell us about the danger of if you have the machine, what can happen? How all the bad blood, I know they say can get stuck or you start swelling and all. Because all the germs, because the blood needs to be refined. That's why the dialysis is for. But I mean, it's
so there's a friend of mine, Chief, whose appeal I just launched in the Tomalin High School Alumni Association chat room. I was in Monrovia. We graduated together. He's paying $300 a week.
Look at that
for dialysis. Yes, and in Monrovia, in Liberia, yeah, $300.
He working?
I mean, how is he going to? Yeah, $300 a week. You know. So it's really
it's a week about $900 you paying.
Yeah.
You know, Monday almost $3,600. Oh my God.
Nobody, no regular person. I mean, no human being can afford that. This lady was telling me, she says, she says, I pay $115 plus this, and I do that twice a week. And if I do it for, just imagine, she said $230 a week.
And also, I want to find out, I don't know, I don't even found the news today. I just saw it's on chat rooms. It is true that police invited the former speaker tomorrow?
Yes.
It's
we discussed that. It's right here on the front pages of
so they got all the CDC lawmakers invited?
Yes. They say here, 7 lawmakers summoned by the police over Capitol building arson. The Liberian National Police has summoned 7 members of the House of Representatives for questioning in connection with the recent arson attack on the Capitol. The lawmakers, Representative Jonathan Fonati Kofa, Priscilla Cooper, Dixon Sebo, Marvin Cole, Jacob Dibby, Frank Saafoko, and Abu Kamara are expected at the Liberia National Police Headquarters on Friday, June the 6th. They have been named persons of interest in this investigation.
So the speech that I know you play a video before the show started. That today President Weah made that speech.
Yes.
Out today's speech.
Well, I don't know, but
you did out today's speech.
No, I'm not aware.
But I
said I'm not aware. You can easily text him and find out. You got people close there that you can talk to. Why you can't do that?
I saw Saku Fokuda behind. I asked him, what are today's speech? I'm following. I thought you were being informed. I'm asking you.
But I just answered you. I said I'm not aware.
Okay.
It's a serious stuff.
No, but the government gotta be careful though. I mean, I don't know, because you pushing this is the larger opposition party, and you push it them because the day of that incident, police were in charge of the Capitol building.
That's correct.
And then it was how you accuse one side. So the police got the fire police that came from America. They told us that they got it and did it or what?
Well, the thing was,
you got that report. I'll release that report tomorrow. Someone release I'll release the report tomorrow.
What did the report say?
But listen,
I'll put it in the chat room.
But listen, the speaker's chair and the deputy's chair was removed before the building got burned. Who removed those chairs and how they removed them? Of all the properties in there, they left everything. They removed those 2 chairs. Okay.
So here's the thing. I think maybe I don't know what tomorrow's meeting going to be about. Whether they're going to formally charge these guys, but I'm telling you, it's going to be a very difficult thing for a court of competent jurisdiction to easily convict these guys. I mean, to build the evidence on the basis of maybe you say and I say this person. So we wait to hear what is the nature of the meeting tomorrow. Even though there is speculation that the former speaker might be arrested, but we don't want to speculate on this show for now. But there is that growing concern in the country on social media.
But the thing is, after you won this sought after Security Council seat, and your speech is we use our platform for reconciliation and peace building, and then the next day you get this headline. Okay, so I mean, when we talk about the dichotomy, right, in the duality of the deception of this administration, this is what we mean. Where you're talking one thing and doing something different. You just received the Security Council, non-permanent member Security Council, and your acceptance speech is it's time to bring the country together. We're going to do this. We're going to reconcile. We build peace. And then you turn around the next day and arrest almost the entire leadership of the opposition. Your main opposition. How do you square that?
Maybe the media is to close the case tomorrow. Maybe invite them and say, "Oh, we don't have anything to put the case further. The case closed." Maybe.
Well, they don't. If that is the case, they don't call you people of interest.
Oh, that's why in the letter.
That's what it says here. Yep, they've been summoned by the police as people of interest. It's right on the front page of all the newspapers.
Oh wow!
So the 7 lawmakers summoned by the police over Capitol building arson investigation, and they have been summoned as people of interest. So this might be the 3rd or 4th time they're calling them. You remember the first time they called them, they went to Safoko's house. How do you invite somebody of interest and surround the house with armed men? Is that interest? That sounds like somebody you want to get rid of or something.
If tomorrow meeting leads to an arrest or charge, it will be the largest since the PRC. It will be the largest arrest of government officials since the PRC.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's
because nobody, the guys are not threatening the peace, and you just had the impasse at the legislature and the NSO kind of way to end it, and you want to still push problem for the country.
I'm all for them holding anybody who's responsible for the capital.
I agree.
I'm all for that. People who were involved in that should be held accountable and responsible.
But you might don't do it with no evidence.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying so we wait to see, and they just don't need to politicize this approach. We agree people who went and burned our Capitol building must be held accountable. That was wrong, and we can say that's a very poor example we set to our country. we think that area is our heritage that it should have been burned. But I think the government own approach to the investigation left too many dark clouds. You start at first, you call people there from there, you say you brought international expert. They did something around in there. We don't know where they came from. I mean, when you want to do this kind of thing, considering that it has political connections, you must be very transparent through all the process. Because to leave any part a little claim, even if your intentions were okay, it creates doubt in the public. And what's the essence of justice when it's doubtful? So that's the thing. They were just rushing one score political point and all of the things. For some of us, we stand in support that no matter who was involved, as long as you choose to burn the Capitol building, you must be accountable, you must be liable. But I think the government approach in that investigation was a little political. They were haphazard and stuff like that, So we wait to see what happens tomorrow.
I'm also share in the room. They report that they fire guys from America.
I wish you could have it on the show to discuss it tonight before.
I mean, I say but it's a 17-page report. I mean, share.
But what the summary say?
But we discussed that in
Independent Fire Investigation Report concerning the fire on December 18, 2024 in the Liberia Capitol building. So let me share what you put in the room, and everybody can make it. Maybe you can study the report, and tomorrow you can discuss it.
That's correct. Let's do it tomorrow.
Yeah. So.
Okay, guys. It was nice. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. God bless.
Yeah.